Hello, everybody. This is Donna McCauley in the DMQuilting studio. We're going to just kind of hang out here for a few minutes while people join us. This is a good time if you're on here now that you can pull up your information sheet that is posted for you for today's program. We're going to be taking a look at the Holley Leaf and Wreath templates and also review the tree templates. And so we are getting ready for our holidays, and I hope that you are ready to do some quilting with me. We're not going to do it together. I'm going to kind of explain how the templates work, and then we'll do some stitching of them. So I just kind of made a mistake there in my comments. So hi, everybody. I'm glad to see that you're signing on and getting connected. I do have Vanna on here today with me, and so hopefully she'll be able to answer any questions that you might have, just in case I'm at the machine and can't see them. So, oh, I see I have Rosemary on here from Phoenix, one of my neighbor ladies. So hi, Rosemary. This is kind of fun for me to get to see who everyone is and where you're coming from. And I know there's other people out there watching that doesn't make a comment. So just tell me where you are. I'm okay with that. You don't have to get into a lot of detail if you don't want to. So we are a couple of minutes into the program. It always seems to take a little while for everybody to get connected, so I don't want to run off from you too far. So once again, we have the download, and you can see right here the information sheet for the demonstration today of the Holley Leaf and Wreath templates, and also the tree templates. And those are posted in the files category on the DMQ Ruler Work Classroom, if you're a member of that Facebook group. Also on the DMQuilting page on Facebook. And I did post it on the So Steady page. Sometimes things get lost in that one. So however you need to get it, I will go ahead and add it to my website. So for those of you that aren't able to find it on any of the group pages, then it will be available for you there. So let me go ahead and move some things aside, but I want to show you this cute little thing. Isn't that just really cute? It is a little decorated Christmas tree. And so that's just one of the things that can be done. This is not something we're going to do today, but all of the elements that's needed to complete that is all within this one template here. So that's just kind of a fun little thing. Stitched that out quite a while ago, and I thought, oh, I just really like that. And so wanted to just pull it out and let you take a look at it too. So let's take a look real quick, like here, at what the material is in our information sheets. We have our cover page that shows us what we're doing, and then we have the pages that I refer to as the user information, and it talks about the template, explains what the markings are, and all of this information that you're going to find on the template. It is part of the packaging that comes with all of them. But sometimes there's a few things on different templates that's not on some. And so I just find that having little information sheet helps. Then here are some samples of what we can do here we have up at the top these green holly leaves. These are 40% the actual stitched out size. And so, you know, they're not this tiny. That would be pretty difficult to stitch, but these are 40% size of what you actually get. And then we just have some different ways where this particular pattern, which we're going to stitch out, it's a combination of this part right down here and multiplied out into multiple block units to fill as far along the edges from edge to edge as you might want to go. This could be used on, oh my goodness, anything you wanted. Any one of the three sizes of templates would also work. If you wanted to use that on a quilt or a table runner, placemat, or even just a little holiday decoration of some sort. And so it's just kind of a fun way to do it. A little bit of information on how to create those triple leaf patterns. Next page is samples of how you can create some circular patterns using the leaf templates. We'll actually take a closer look at the templates here in just a few minutes. So we have over here the optional items. A basic marker is helpful, a 6 or 8 point crosshair marker, and the straightaway template. So however we're making those connections from one to the next or laying it out in the beginning, you might need to use those. If you've tried your hand at some Temply and wanted to create some wreath patterns, now this is not using the wreath template, this is using the leaf template. And so it is just created in a rounded manner and then cut out. So here we have kind of a fun little thing I had going on Facebook for a while, had images of this pattern and said, who can tell me what the template is? And it was kind of interesting, some of the guesses that we had. So that's always a pretty fun thing. We're going to actually stitch this one out here today, and we'll show you how to get to that. It looks more complicated than what it actually is. Next page, we go into the Holley Wreath. This is a set of 2 templates. They work on the rotation pin right down here, and one will fit and stitch inside the other and create the leaf. This center, from center here to the circle on the outer one, this will create an 11.5 inches in pattern here, and this upper one, the small size, is the one that goes on the inside, and that's an 8-inch pattern. So they could be used independently or together as we're doing here. Up here it shows that we have our first round of stitching, or the outside edge, and then the second round is shown in red here. And this is both templates just kind of overlaid in place so that you can see how they would work. Both go on the rotation pin. This vertical line is the one that we would align with our marked lines and just stitch and rotate. What I did with this one was put staple tape on the top of it, and then you can flip it over and go the other direction and get a pattern that goes in both ways, or one way or the other way. So it's kind of fun, the different combinations of what you can do. You know, and these don't have to just be for Christmas. Anything where you are looking for some kind of a leaf pattern, these would work. And then we have the trees, and there's 2 sizes in the trees. These are single templates. The small size is our little 2 by 2 inches by 3 inches, And it is just a single template with no extra features. However, in the larger one, there is a lot more to it. It actually has a star. It has a 1/4 inch little circle and then a 1/2 inch. And so these are what this whole thing was used to create the little blue cloth that you saw. They can be used with or without the trunk, and that would be stitched straight across on both of them or down. And then here, the stitch path lets you, if you wanted to space them out any distance, you could just travel to the end of the path and move the template over. We'll stitch these out in a little bit. This explains where the measurements are and the sizes and those little bits of information. I like to put all of this down on paper for you so you don't have to try to remember what I said. You can actually pull this up and take a look at it when you're working on it. Some of the patterns that I've used, we could stitch without the trunk or with the trunk. You can stitch from the top if you're for the circular patterns or the bottom, and you get a completely different kind of look. Right here is the little decorated samples, and here is the small tree samples, how they could be stitched in a circular pattern and then connected and used coming across. Here is another one with the bigger tree and 12 rotations. And I think that is the end of that in those instructions. If you have the Winter Dreamin' pattern, it goes into great detail on how to stitch out the designs in that project. We'll take a look at that in just a minute here, but feel free to pull this complimentary pattern off of my website. I've not posted it on the Facebook groups, so if you don't have it or you want to get it, you can just get it and download it. So how are we doing? Do we have any questions or anything out there, Vanna, that we need to talk about for a second? Vanna says not yet, so I guess we're doing okay. So someone is asking about where the handouts are that we just took a look at, and I did post them on the Sew Steady page a couple of days ago, so you might have to search and find that. It's on the DMQuilting Facebook page and also in the files section on the DMQ Rulerwork Classroom. Because of the way Facebook works, I can't just post these on there randomly. I have to put them somewhere and then share them. And so that's why I say sometimes they don't always end up in the other location. So let's move this aside. And just before we start quilting, I want to quickly take a look at this quilt for the Winter Dreamin' project. It was done a couple of years ago and is a lot of fun. But the part I want to show you right here in this center pattern, this is done with the tree template, the large size, and you can see right here how it's positioned. Did not stitch the trunk, just went straight across. And so I marked for 24 rotations, stitched one whole pattern, and then rotated and stitched the next. And so how on earth could you possibly get something like that out of a Christmas tree? And this is how it was done. So if we turn the tree around the other direction, then we would have our center would be here at the tip and the straight edge, and you'd have a completely different look. But what I especially like with this is all of that real pretty cross-hatching fill work inside that filigree is all done with the template. Just the shape of the template creates that as it overlays. Now, you don't have to do 24 rotations. You could do 16, you could do 8, you could do 4, you could do 32, whatever number suits you. But the more rotations you have, the more interior work you're going to get out of it. If you're wanting to do some template work where you come along and cut away some of these sections, you may not want to have as many rotations as what this has here, because your spaces are going to get pretty tiny. And I don't know about you, but I don't like cutting out those little tiny things. They're just too hard to see. So the same thing can be created using the smaller template, but you're going to have a smaller pattern because, of course, it's only 3 inches tall. So with the 5-inch tray, you'll end up with a 10-inch diameter because we're going from the center out. And then on this particular pattern, I used the tree and just filled in my border area. And then down below that, use the itty bitty ribbon candies to go along that outer edge. So there's all of the detailed instructions on how to make this project, plus the supplies that you need, is all included in the pattern. So let's move that over and take a look at the templates. Sometimes I feel like I have to talk really fast to get all the information in before we run out of time. So if I run off from anyone, just let me know. Let's take a look here at our Holley Wreath templates. So we actually have the images in the handout, but just in case someone didn't get that handout, what's kind of fun with these templates, this particular one, the smaller one of the two, it has 2 leaf designs and a circle for the berries. The larger leaf has a circle, and this one is a 1/2 inch, and this one is 3/4 of an inch. So you could actually use any of those, and also it has etch lines to show where your other berries are, just to kind of help line it up. We have alignment marks diagonally and vertical center on all of these, and of course, you know, when you turn the template around, you can see. So this one is our 2 inches wide by 3 inches long. And I've covered up my numbers on that little guy. They are 1 inch down here. Now you can see 1 inch by 1.5 inch right here. 1 inch wide and 1.5 inches long. So if you were doing a small project, maybe wanted to put some holly leaves around the bottom of your tree, or along some of your border edges, any of these would work. The bigger size is 3 inches wide, and the widest point is up here. The longest point is where our biggest number is, our 4 inches. So we have 3 inches here, 4 inches. Here is our center, our horizontal center, which is the midpoint between top and bottom, and then our diagonal lines. For the wreath templates, let's just see if we can line them up as if they were on the pin. Yes, Donna said there's a question. So the question is, are these available separately or as sets. The trees are available individually and as a set. These two, because of the way they work, are only available as a set. And then, of course, the Holley Leaf is the same way. So this is a set here of 2 templates in the leaf pattern, but you get 3 different leaves and 2 different berries in the 2 templates. And then for the wreath, you get 2 templates. And so they're pretty straightforward in how they work, I hope. So the tree templates are 2 separate ones available individually or as a set of 2. So here are the trees, just a real quick review there, the actual template with the 2 sizes of circles and the star, and then also the little guy. I like to give you all the extra little parts that are going to work with the template when possible. Sometimes there isn't space on the template to do that, but with this particular one, I just thought that was a real easy way to do it. You would not have to use the whole tree and the star. You could use one or the other. You could even just use the circles. So however you wanted to do it. So let's go ahead and pull out some fabric. What do you think? So does that answer all the questions that we have on there, Vanna, so far? She said, yes, it does. So if you have any questions or comments that you would like for me to address, please go ahead and type them in the comments, and then she will read them to me. I have her in my ear, and so I can hear her talking, but you cannot. So let's pull out our leaf template, and I've done a little bit of marking on here just so we don't have to do that now. What I'm going to show you to create where are we? Our design on page 5, right down here, we have an X or a cross marked, and it's about 5 or 6 inches. It's not great big. What's kind of cool with this particular template, if I can pull it up here, is that we center it not on the center and work like that, but on the vertical and horizontal alignment lines. So our thread slot is always going to be opposite end of our vertical center line, right down here. That's right down through the middle of that thread slot is our vertical center at the bottom. At the top, and we're going to place that on our mark line. So to stitch that pattern, we stitch and then turn and adjust and stitch again. And then we get to flip it over. Wait a minute here, I've turned upside down now. So we're going to, let me back up. We're going to stitch it this way and then stitch it this way. I turned it upside down instead of around. So we have our strong point at one end and then at the other, and then we do the same thing on the side. And that's what gives us that open area in the middle. It's not a great big open area, but then in order to, see if I have another image of that, where it connects one to the next. So then our next one if we were doing a sequence of those across, would connect out here. So let's go ahead before we run out of time, because we have 6 different templates to look at today, and I'm not going to be able to do all of them. I mean, everything on all of them. I just want to show you how they work. So let's move this light out of the way. So I may end up needing to put a little bit more stable tape on my template. I was working with it earlier and I felt like maybe it was slipping around a little bit. So if that's the case, we just need more tape. We'll find out in a minute. Sometimes the finish on some of the fabric is pretty slick. And so if you're ever having trouble quilting on a project and it is not pre-washed fabric and you're having trouble keeping it in position, it could be because of that polished sizing on your fabric. Let's turn this around, get my threads out of the way. So I centered my template right on my lines. And once I had that, then was able to put my needle down. And so we're just going to stitch around the template here. Sometimes when we're dealing with hot weather, working on Christmas projects isn't necessarily what we want to do. But these don't have to just be only for Christmas. The thread's looped around the back. Hold on, everybody. There we go. Oh dear. I hate it when this happens, you guys. I know you all deal with it too. So we have a technical difficulty here, and I need to fix my thread. It's going to not go much farther. So let's just keep on going here. I have to rethread the machine. It somehow got caught and it's looped around my needle and actually split the thread. So I know from a lot of the questions that I see in different locations, everyone has issues at one time or another. And the best thing you can do is simply start over with that thread. So if we go any farther with it, we run the risk of really making a big mess in the machine. It just isn't worth it. I don't like having to take the time to deal with it, but it sure beats the consequences of not taking care of it. And it happens to everyone. There isn't any of us that is free from that kind of stuff going on. And this probably wasn't the best thread to use because it splits. But I kind of liked the color of it. And so sometimes we do dumb things because we want a different effect. So this was probably my dumb thing for today. It's kind of a variegated green and gold and yellows and things like that. You probably can't tell that on my black fabric, but it shows up nicely. So the next trick is to get right back in here where we ended. And to show you how to go about fixing that, let's bring some light back over here. What we would normally do is remove some of these stitches because those are too short to do anything with. And so it really, you know, we can always have a bobbin problem or a thread break or anything else. And knowing what to do to fix the problem is half of the battle. So I am not cutting those threads. I'm using my seam ripper and unsewing it back to a point where I have enough thread to bring up on top. And here's my bobbin right there, and it's still pretty short. And once we have enough thread here, those are long enough, I can bury them. Okay, so I hope you can see those. So we just back it up and remove those threads. Get all this junk off of here. And I will now put my needle back in place, back here a little bit, and stitch right over the top of some of those threads. So I will pass over, but these will end up getting buried into my quilt sandwich, and so they'll be gone forever and not be a problem anymore. So I don't even have to have my template in place. I know where I needed to start. So let's just put that needle down. Make sure I'm not folded up underneath. And I'm going to go back about 4 stitches from where I pull my thread out so I can overstitch a little ways. So if you have a knee lifter on one of your machines that you're using, it really is like a third hand for you, and I use that thing all the time. I just love it when they started adding that to the different machines. But if you have one of the little more vintage machines, like I know some of you have out there, that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, you just have to stick your hands in the back and lift it yourself. This is why we have the thread slot. So we can just manipulate right in around that needle and don't have to worry about it, and put the template right where it needs to go. Let's rotate, make sure we're lined up correctly all the way around. And now I have to kind of hang on to those threads. I ended up with them underneath my template, so let's see, that might be a problem. It's okay to have them underneath the template, and I like to do that. A lot of times I will actually put them under there and secure them with the stable tape and let that help me hold them down. But in this case, we have extra threads, and I hope my hands aren't in the way and you can see what I'm trying to accomplish here. So we'll do just a few little tiny micro stitches. See how little movement there is, and that just kind of secures those starting stitches. And then we can now continue on and overstitch those ones that we removed and wrote. Right up, we'll stop right on the marked line and keep stitching the edge of the template. As long as we are touching the edge of the template, we will stitch out the shape that it was designed to create. If we get away from that edge, then it's possible that we'll end up with a different shape. Not always the one we wanted. Once we get to a point where here my needle is on a marked line, I can reposition my template if I need to, and it will keep me pretty much on target with what I need to do. So here we have completed that entire pattern of our template. We're not going to be able to complete all of this because we're going to run out of time. There's too many others that we need to stitch. So here we were. Now rotate our template around and reposition, and we're almost in the right spot. That we need to be. Might need to come back down. Taking the template out of position there kind of created a little issue for me. So now we're going to come right back on down. Make sure we're on our lines. So first we go right side up and then we go upside down. I mean, it's really that simple. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut my threads here because we're going to run out of time. But it gives you the idea of how that template works. It just one direction, turn around and do the other. So our open area is going to be right here. Like I said, it's not real big in there. Then our next pattern would be centered right here and put our points out going the other way. Okay? So what I wanted to do though here is show you real quick like how we can create our leaf, the triple leaf, and add our circles in. So how are we doing? Do we have any questions out there that we need to take a look at? Not yet. Oh. No questions, Vanna says. So here I don't always go this slow, but I do not speedball around. So the question was, am I stitching this slowly for your benefit? And somewhat. Part of the problem here too, when I'm working on a project by myself and I'm here, I can get right in there and see what I want to do. But when I'm doing this for your, there's two things. Your benefit, I want you to see exactly where I am and what I'm doing. But I also am looking around a camera and a bunch of other things that are kind of in the way. So it makes it a little more challenging there. So it isn't necessary to go really fast. You actually have better stitch formation if you don't. I do know that once you get your pattern kind of figured out, what you're doing with it, you just naturally pick up your speed a little bit. So, and then having thread issues also creates a little challenge. Back at center and rotate and realign. So this is just our standard 3-leaf holly pattern that works on lots of different projects. Having the 3 different sizes lets you mix and match or stick with all one size, however you want. So one thing too, with these particular templates, you have a few more curves to them. And so, you know, if you're going to want to try and do pedal to the metal and just jam around it, you probably aren't going to have the same pattern consistently every time. So that's just another thing to know. You know, when we're doing just straight circles, that's one thing. But where we have small places that we're working around, it's a little different. So now we're back at our center, and I've got those extra threads in there and can't see. I'm going to use my thread slot and pull it out from my location. I am pivoting my fabric here today. I am working kind of in the corner, and if I don't, you're not going to see what I'm doing. So let's go and get this other template, which has our 1/2 inch circle, and create those little holly berries. So you can see on the template is the etch line of where they are, and you can just position that wherever you want them to be. Part of my template is hanging off the edge of my fabric, so I hope that doesn't create a problem. So we can stitch around as much as you want. I have one friend who likes to leave her template in place, and then she will just do fill, stitching random patterns back and forth in that location. So once we are going to now add another circle, we want to stitch over to where it is centered on the edge of the foot. And now we will want to just kind of move around, align the etch lines on our previous stitches, and create another circle. You could change threads, or you could fill it in here in this position. But we're just going to use all one thread. So one thing doing the fill with our template in place is we're not going to go outside that circle. So I'm not going to do that right now, just because I don't want to do just one and not do them all. But here we have our berries. We could position them wherever you wanted to. I chose this lower portion right down there so we could see how that works. So shall we do a part of the wreath, or would you like to see one of the trees? You tell me what you want. Okay, so Vanna's waiting on you to answer. So these templates are now available on both my website and on So Steady website. And so whichever one works. If you have the holiday sampler that came out a couple of years ago, these templates are also, the tree templates are also in that, along with one of the ribbon candies and one of the stepping stone templates. I have a new sampler set that's going to be coming out pretty soon that's really kind of cool. It's a lot of fun to play with, and I don't yet know what a date is, I have marked here for 16 rotations, so I'm going to place my rotation pin in the middle of that. The wreath, I kind of thought maybe that might be the case. So it looks like people are asking to see us do the wreath, and that's what we're doing. So I have 16 rotations marked on my fabric and put my pin in the center. I think I will use the large size first, and we're not going to stitch the whole thing. I think just because of timing, we probably won't be able to. I'm on the rotation pin. Get that thread out of the way. So here we have, let's take a look at that on our marked lines. Here's what would be our vertical center. You might think, looking at the template, that coming out the tip end of the leaf would be where center is, but it actually isn't. It's center of the pattern. And so the way this forms is all the way around. And as we stitch along and move and rotate, that's how we are going to create our interior circle. So let's get situated. I'm going to start, I like to start when I'm using this kind of a template where I'm kind of on a line, partly because that's a good overlap area, and I don't want to have more stitching or less stitching in parts of it, if that makes any sense. So when we travel around, I want to end up going, if I'm out in the middle, in between lines, it's possible that I'll have some inconsistencies in my finished stitches of my circle. I'm going to hold on to those threads lined up, and we're going to a few stitches just to get started and work our way around the edge of these little lumps and bumps. This is one that is a little bit forgiving. We have the etch lines in there, but if you get off target just a little, it's not that big of a deal. Partly because, you know, it's a leaf pattern. When we stitch back into our path, we want to go far enough into it where we connect with the other threads. There is a little bit of a space right here, and that's supposed to be there. But here we are. And when we rotate our template, right now we're too far out because our foot is outside the opening. So let's put it back in place, and we'll stitch right along this inside edge until we come back to our vertical center marked line. And this is how we start forming our circle. Now we'll rotate the template, and we're back in line here where we started. It doesn't matter if you go one way and then the other, or if you go the outside first. You don't have to have a death grip on these templates. They aren't going to go anywhere. When you get to the point, it's a good idea to take a second stitch in there so you don't pull it out and have it rounded. Now I'm going to stitch back forward until I get to my marked line and rotate my template. Line up with my next marked line. And I like to go in a clockwise pattern. That just seems to work easiest for me. however you want to do it is fine. It doesn't matter if you stitch the top or the bottom edge. I seem to be able to see this direction a little bit easier. You want to just stitch back enough so that your circle connects, and as you work your way around, it looks a little weird maybe in some spots when you're first getting started, but when you complete your whole circle, it will work out nicely. There is some overlap, and that's okay. It's a wreath. So if you think of the holly leaf, that wreath that we might hang on our front door during the winter holiday times, that's what we're creating here. So let's go right here. We have 4 leaf patterns in our wreath. And let me keep an eye on the time here. We'll do a couple more, and then we're going to do the bottom part. Not going to be able to do the whole thing all the way around. But what I want to show you is how to get back to the next location. We can go all the way around, keep rotating with our template, and do it that way. But some of these patterns, you'll have 16 rotations, but not stitch the very top. You'll only stitch starting at the second location and stitch 7, and then flip your template over and go back 7 the other direction. So it leaves an opening, and that's why I want to show you how we can do that. So here we are. I'm just going to stitch backwards, staying in that channel. Once I get to my marked line, I'm going to reverse the template and keep just stitching along that circle. So I'm not just free motion backtracking, I'm actually using the template to let me stitch in reverse, if you will. If we go too far, we're going to be inside the leaf, so we don't want to do that. So we're just stitching inside our stitch path of the template from one marked line to the next. I think you can all see what I'm doing here. So Vanna says we have a good view. Now I'm going to move this over and remove that template and get the smaller one. So these are really kind of fun to play with. We are not going all the way around. It's just kind of a partial arc wreath. How's that? Goes onto our pin in the very same way. And now we're going to insert into the stitch path and line it up right there with our marked line. We could come over here and start with our first one where we want. These kind of get a little close together, and so skipping every other one is okay with the inside circle or inside leaves. They're a little bit smaller in size, not a whole lot, just so they'll fit in there. So let's just see how they turn out. They do overlap. I think that we should plan to do a giveaway from today's live demo here. So tell me which ones of these templates that we've looked at so far would you want to have in a giveaway? And I'll pick someone And then we'll do that. Do we want to have the Holley Wreath or the Holley Leaf? Which one would you have the most use for right now in your projects? So you can see as these leaves form here on our inside, we end up also creating a little bit bolder circle as we stitch along. But that's kind of part of the beauty, I think, of this design. It really kind of emphasizes that ring in the middle. So these could be used to create a small spray. It wouldn't always have to just be a wreath, a full circle. Only a partial would work as well. Travel back around so we can move our template forward without falling out the back end. So if you have the Ribbons and Bows wreath template, you know, it has the same kind of a circular path on the inside of it and works pretty much the same way. So if you've played with that set of templates, you're already ahead of the game in how these would work. And then as we go around, you just keep following in that path and rotate to your next line. Let's take this out and take a look at it. So you can see now why I wanted to use that green thread. It just really shows up real pretty, I think. So what do you think, Vanna? Do we have any questions here or anything? So it looks like we have quite a few new people on here, or a few anyway, that have not used any of these templates yet. And so that's always kind of interesting for me. If you want to show me or tell me what your experience level is, then that's great. So Sue is asking here, can I show you the back so you can see it without the markings? And unfortunately, you're not going to see anything because it's pretty bright fabric. So I love the fabric, but you can't see what I did. So let's just see if we can erase out some of those marking lines, and that might help you see a little bit what we look like without them. Don't forget to tell me which ones of the templates that you would want to receive as a giveaway, and I'll pick somebody later after I'm going through all of the comments. What I will do then is send you a message to get me your contact information and address and things like that, and then I can get them sent to you. So watch for that. We'll announce who it is that wins these maybe not until the weekend. So there we have some of the lines gone, and you can see a little bit more about what that looks like. And this is only a partial part. If we were to have stable tape on the top and then came back up here and flipped it over and stitched in this direction, we could create an arcing pattern with our wreath. Oh, I forget that you can't hear what Vanna's telling me, everybody. I'm sorry for that. So she's telling me that everybody's wanting to know what I'm using for an eraser. And this is actually a fabric eraser. I've used it so much, all of my labeling is gone from it. But when I got my marking pen, which is one of my very favorites. I use this all the time. It's not really a pen. This is a fine lead chalk pencil, and it is, right here is the brand. And I have a couple here in stock, not very many, but this is an eraser that is a fabric chalk eraser that removes this. And honestly, you can see how it works. I like this pen because my lines don't get wiped off. On dark fabric, I need to see what I'm doing, but you can see what I'm doing also. And so it works really well for me. It will erase with the eraser or water. It is not heat erasable. So anyway, that's what I use. Any other questions there? It comes with that pen when I believe, and there are refill cartridges. It's made by that same company. And so anyone that carries those pens has that eraser. It is a fabric eraser, and it's made by the Bohin, Bohin company in France. Here's the name right there. Okay, so that's my little advertisement for the day. Any other questions that we have here? We didn't get to stitch out the tree, but in a particular design or anything, but I think you have the information to do that with. Next week, we are going to be looking at the basic marker, the straightaway templates, and also the stepping stones. But while I have you here, I have a new straightaway. And so you may be familiar with my little it's a pretty amazing tool. I think it's probably one of the most perfect templates. And it's, we have about a 6-inch stitch pack there. It's about 6 inches long, and we have about 5 inches where you can actually stitch inside that. But I never really stitch a full running 5 inches. Let's see if I can get this in there like it fits, so we can measure that. So we have stitched 5 inches inside. The whole overall length is that 6 inches, and then has all the measurements and markings on the side. But take a look at this granddaddy. This is now one where we have 12 inches of length here from our open end here down to our bottom end, the farthest point we can stitch. And so we can safely go 11.5 inches. You could do 12, but you might come shooting out the back end of it if you wanted to. And it's a little bit wider. It's actually 4 inches wide and has 1/4 inch verticals on both sides of the stitch path and 1/2 inch plus all of the numberings, just like we have on the little one. So this is real new. Haven't really done much of anything with it yet as far as demos or anything, but it works just like this on a bigger scale. So that's going to be next week, and I hope to see you then. So thank you everyone for coming along and helping out today to Vanna. This really does make it a lot easier for me. I don't have to concentrate on paying attention to the laptop. I can talk to you and so there we are. I will run through the comments and see if there's anything I need to respond to that did not get addressed. And for those of you that told me which one of these sets of templates that you would like to have, whether it be the leaf or the wreath, I'll come through and pick someone. Yes, so the question is, I'm thinking this one here. Yes, it is. It is available on the website. Everything I've shown you today is on my website. They don't always make it to the So Steady website quite as soon, but they are all on mine now. So you can get to them. This is really ideal if you do any larger blocks. I had run into some issues where I'm trying to do some stitching on a bigger block and having to try and line up over here and then on the other end of it was a little challenging, and I found that I'm having to use a ruler and would then hold the edge to guide so I could have a shorter distance, and that's how I came up with this one here. So if you have a machine that still has a smaller throat, not a lot of room to work with, you can still use this because it's only 4 inches wide. And frequently, we're not necessarily going to be working on it horizontally and have to cram in, but you could. You don't have to stitch that whole length. I just like this because I can position it where I need it to be on my mark line and stitch along as I need to go. So this is a new one. It is called the Straightaway 12-inch, and this is the Straightaway, just the standard size. So thanks again, everybody. This is Donna McCauley in the DMQuilting Studio saying goodbye, and I'll see you next week.